Florida's coast has always been a gateway, but you wouldn't imagine the things that have happened here this year. The very gateway has now become a battlefield involving some of the most shocking smuggling plots to ever occur on American waters. Before we uncover this story, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more stories like this. The Airbnb. Alright guys, this is where it starts. Florida coast. It seemed like a quiet day with only a few boats sailing off the coast of Fort Pierce until the agents hinted at something strange. The coast had vessels, and they all moved in a strange yet tight pattern. The things these people carried could expose a pipeline stretching from China to the Bahamas and straight into the US. There were 30 Chinese nationals on board, including 2 children. Along with them, there were 5 Bahamians with over 370 pounds of cocaine. These guys were ready, like they were going to build a startup with a whole lot of cocaine. But that is, until they got busted. But that wasn't an instant bust. It took them months of investigation and planning, with a tip that blew the entire case wide open. And so the story begins. You know, classic. Men renting Airbnb like they're just some friends on a vacay. But really, it wasn't a family trip or casual party. It was a proper command center for multi-smuggling rings. Turns out, inside that rental, there were plans being drawn and tons of maps that revealed routes, schedules, and coded messages. All the secret information that wasn't supposed to be there. These guys had one mission: to sail all the way to the Bahamas, pick up the drugs and undocumented immigrants, and sneak them into Florida without anybody knowing. It was a whole network backed by big criminal organizations based in Southeast Asia and China. The morning of the launch. Now at 5:30 a.m., the boats pushed off from the Fort Pierce Inlet. The water was calm and the air still. The men thought they were all alone, but they weren't. Federal agents were closely watching them. Homeland Security, the DEA, Border Patrol, and the St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office had been tracking them for days. 2 boats were intercepted almost instantly. The third tried to make a run for it, but when it reached open water, it was surrounded. The smuggling run was over before it began. When officers climbed the boards, they couldn't believe what they saw. They found hidden compartments with kilograms of cocaine. That wasn't all at all. There were terrified faces with over 30 migrants sitting shoulder to shoulder in poor conditions. Among these migrants, 2 poor children were barely old enough to speak. The traffickers had used them as a shield, a human disguise, so that the entire journey looked normal. For Sheriff Richard Del Toro, the discovery hit him hard. The operation symbolized resistance. Authorities also made it clear that Florida's shores wouldn't serve as a way for criminal activities. So, this wasn't just any random bust, but it marked the entire state's stand against an evolving criminal industry. Smuggling reinvented. For almost a decade, such criminals entered through the southern border by land. But with border restrictions tightened under federal leadership, traffickers changed their ways. Now they use the sea route. They would illegally enter the Bahamas on their tourist visas. From there, smugglers would ferry them across the last 50 miles of ocean into Florida. It was quite fast, quiet, and for cartels, extremely profitable too. I mean, if you think about it, it's crazy. Each migrant on the vessel had paid up to $35,000 for the trip. If you multiply this amount by 30, you get a payday worth over $1 million in one single crossing, and the cocaine, that was a bonus round. Their original plan was to offload the drugs onto the waiting vehicles in Florida, while the migrants disappear into safe houses all across the state. Many of them had arranged through fake rental listings and cash payments. The operation wasn't sloppy, and that's exactly what makes it truly impressive. It was organized crime with a modern twist. They rented an Airbnb to blend with others, as if they were on a vacation while performing their criminal activities from the shadows. They even ran counter-surveillance teams on Florida's beaches, where men pretended to fish and jog while actually looking for patrol boats and police drones. Their backup boats kept waiting for them offshore, and encrypted phones tracked their movements. These weren't helpless migrants. They actually paid them a hefty sum in this global smuggling network. That's why the federal agents were shocked. This wasn't just a small group, but it was connected to the massive international pipeline spanning thousands of miles. Before diving into the numbers, I'm reminding you to subscribe to our channel for more stories like these. The data. Now, diving into numbers, we all know that the data doesn't lie. Homeland Security analysts had already noticed a pattern before the Florida bust in 2024. U.S. land-based smuggling and drug cases were numerous, about hundreds each month. But by mid-2025, those numbers had dropped sharply while maritime operations spiked. In 2024, there were 453 land drug seizures, but a year later, just 33. But sea interceptions? They exploded. By July 2025, there were over 800 maritime smuggling incidents recorded. This was a record for the U.S., literally the highest number of smuggling operations in U.S. history. And this Florida operation proved why. When land routes get tough, cartels adapt. When the walls go up, they sail across them. Now, Sheriff Del Toro sums it up the best. He claims to have a Florida border and calls it the coastline. Since taking office, he had rebuilt federal partnerships that had become cold. He also reunited with local deputies, including DEA, FBI, and U.S. Marshals. The payoff after that? Impressive. Teamwork between these agencies had become a necessity. When Sheriff Del Toro took office, those partnerships broke. They became stronger than ever, and the results showed that. The Fort Pierce raid also proves why federal agents and local officers worked together to stop a multi-million-dollar smuggling route before it hit the shore. People behind the numbers. Though behind every statistic lies a story. Think about the 30 Chinese nationals, for instance. Almost 90% of them had sold everything they owned to make this journey. It could be literally anything valuable. Everything was gone. The worst part is that these people didn't even know they were being tricked, and when they got to know the reality, they cried a lot. At this point, they were nothing more than just victims and accomplices all at the same time. They were the pawns in a network that treated them as cargo and not people. As for the children, they weren't there by some sort of accident. They were placed to make the crossing seem real if caught, but when the Coast Guard boarded, it became way too clear that this wasn't just a migration, but a case of human trafficking under the guise of immigration. In the days that followed, the U.S. Coast Guard made its message clear that anyone trying to enter the U.S. by sea would be stopped and sent back, no exceptions. The Chinese nationals were processed to return home. The Bahamian boatmen who faced smuggling and trafficking charges with 168 kilos of cocaine were taken as evidence. But now, it's time to discuss the real masterminds, the real planners who were still there. That's when ICE, Homeland Security, and global partners stepped in. They tracked messages, money trails, and chats linked to the Florida bust. It was only the beginning of this operation rather than its end. The bigger picture. The case revealed something larger yet disturbing. This case shows that smuggling is no longer just about borders. It's an entire global logistics business. Traffickers use legitimate tools like Airbnb, airline bookings, commercial boats, crypto transfers, and many more to move people and drugs from one place to another. They exploit weak immigration laws, corrupt middlemen, and technology meant for convenience. And in Florida, that digital smuggling dream met its reality because every agent was tracking the signal. For every lookout on the beach, there was a drone hovering overhead. This shouted the message that no matter how sophisticated these smugglers get, the U.S. will always be one step ahead of them. The wake-up call for America. The Fort Pierce incident was a wake-up call for everyone. It showed how America's battle against smuggling is changing and that the fight has moved from deserts to coastlines. The next big threat might be sailing quietly around the border, but America's got it covered. And more than anything, this case proves that teamwork matters a lot among the local deputies, federal agents, and international partners. They meet with one goal and mission in mind. No turfs, wars, or politics, just results. For Sheriff Richard Del Toro and his team, it was a great moment in their careers. And for ICE and Homeland Security, it was a neat reminder that crime no longer stays in just one place. It can move, adapt, and evolve, just like people fighting to stop it. Now, it was dawn, and all the boats were docked and migrants processed. Cocaine was bagged and logged as evidence. The sun rose over the same blue water that the smugglers thought would be their escape route, but it's become their undoing. So the sheriff stood on the pier and summed up what many were thinking. Smugglers may adapt, but so will we. At this moment, you could tell that America's coastal defense was evolving. Smuggling wasn't a border problem anymore. It was an ocean-wide chess match, one that just got harder for the players trying to beat the system. And this is it. This was the ICE smash of the Chinese cartel pipeline in Florida. A story of betrayal, danger, and the determination of law enforcement fighting back. If you're new here but you still want to stay ahead of others, make sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join us as we uncover the truth behind the headlines.